This is Test Review Video 5. We're on the very back side of the packet. It's the multiple choice. The title of the page is Module 3 Mixed Review, Assessment Readiness, and as a reminder, this is page 66 out of your book if you want to follow along there. Okay, so we'll just kind of go in order the best we can. Number 1 says, Suki split 5 dog treats equally among her 6 dogs. Which fraction represents this division? Well, I hope you can recognize that it's either going to be, since the two numbers are 5 and 6, it's either going to be 5 divided by 6 or 6 divided by 5. So without even doing too much thinking, your options are either going to be A or B, 6 divided by 5 or 5 divided by 6. C and D are not good options. And the reason I'm pointing this out to you is because it's always a good idea in multiple choice to identify what the potential answers could be and to eliminate those bad answers so that you at least reduce your chances of getting this one wrong. I'm going to erase the 2 circles there because I don't want both answers. It's really only going to be one of them. So remember on one of the previous videos we talked about how the friends were splitting up the blocks of clay. We had 3 blocks of clay divided by 4 friends. So the conclusion we drew was that it was always ended up being the items divided by the people. Now there's no people in this problem, but there's something similar. There's still items, dog treats. Which one is the items? It's 5. So 5 is going to get divided by 6 dogs. 5 divided by 6 dogs is question B. 5 over 6 is 5 divided by 6. The answer is B. Moving on to number 2. I'm going to clear this and move it up so you can see it. Moving on to number 2. Which set or sets does the number 15 belong to? On the previous video, we reviewed the Venn diagram. And 15 is a whole number. And do you remember that whole number was the innermost circle? Whole numbers, 15 belongs as a whole number. So a lot of kids want to circle A. But remember that the whole number circle is inside the integer circle. And remember that the integer circle is inside the rational number circle. So what I just told you was that the answer is D. 15 is a whole number, it is an integer, and it is a rational number. And now is actually probably a decent time to explain why. Whole numbers are positive counting numbers. That's why 15 is a whole number. Integers are positive numbers and their opposites and 0. Well, 15 is not a positive number, but it is integers are positive numbers and their opposites. A lot of kids want to say integers are things like negative 15, but integers are also positive numbers like 15. And a rational number, if you think, well, that's not a rational number, well, it is, because a rational number is anything that can be written as a fraction. And 15 can be written as a fraction. It's 15 over 1. So the answer is D. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to stay at the top of the page and do number 5. We'll come back to the bottom of the page shortly. Number 5. Easiest question on the page. What is the absolute value of negative 12.5? Well, if you started at 0 and worked your way left until you got to negative 12.5, it would take you 12.5 steps. And it doesn't matter that you're going to the left or that if you were going to the right, you just count the steps. How many steps does it take? It takes 12.5 steps. The answer is A. Question number 6. Which number line shows negative 1/4 and its opposite? These can be tricky. You actually need to identify carefully where everything is on this number line. For example, if you just go to A, you'll notice that 0 is right in the middle, and 1 is to the right, and negative 1 is to the left, but then there's some notches in between. And you kind of have to identify what those notches are. You can identify those notches just by counting. So if I count over 1, 2, 3, 4, that means we've divided into fourths. So this is going to be 1/4, this is going to be 2/4, which is also 1/2. This is going to be 3/4, and this is going to be 4/4. The 1 whole is going to be 4/4. Well, it almost kind of looks like A is right, except, go back up to the question. It says, which number line shows negative 1/4? Negative 1/4 is right here. So it's not A. And I kind of just identified that it's going to look like what I did on A. It's going to be 1 on the first notch to the left of 0, and 1 on the first notch to the right of 0. It can't be, if you look at all the other options, D looks kind of good, but they didn't graph their opposite, so it's not D. The answer is B. Question number 3 at the bottom of the page. Which of the following statements about rational numbers is correct? Just like on the practice test, I would actually go through and read all 4 options and put a true or false on them, and then decide at the end. Question A, or statement A says, all rational numbers are also whole numbers. Well, I know that's not true, because a rational number like 7/8 is not a whole number. So I would say that A is false. I'm going to put an F for false. Question B says, all rational numbers are also integers. So I could stick with 7/8. 7/8 is not an integer. So I would say that B is false. Question C reads, all rational numbers can be written in the form of A over B, where A and B are integers, and B is not 0. That is the definition of a rational number, so I think that's true. Question D says, rational numbers cannot be negative. That is false, because I can go back to my example, 7/8. I could actually write that as negative 7/8. That's still a rational number, so it's not true. They actually can be negative, so D is false. It's a good idea to go through and look at all of them before you decide. Since the only one I think is true is C, I'm going to go with that as my answer. Correct answer? C. Okay, question number 4. Which of the following shows the numbers in order from least to greatest? It's always a good idea to underline or highlight what we're looking for, least to greatest. If you look at your options, if you just glance at them, you see that you've got some negatives and some positives. We talked about this a number of times. If you've got some negatives and some positives, the least numbers are going to be the negatives, and the last number is going to be the positives. So right now I can identify 2 answers that aren't going to work. B is not going to work because I've got a negative. Look at the end. The negative can't be the greatest value when there's positives. B is definitely not the best option. C is not the best option because while I did start with a negative, I then went to a positive and then a negative. A negative number can never be greater than a positive number, so it can't be C either. So right off the bat, without even looking at the numbers barely, I know that I've got 2 answers eliminated. So when you think you got it, just go to them, look at A. 1/5, I've got 1/5 memorized. 1/5 is 0.2. So I'm just going to rewrite this as negative 0.2. And then the next one's negative 2/3. That one's on the whiteboard. So that's the same as negative 0.66. And those 6's would repeat. And I'm going to think about that. I know 2 looks like it's less than 6, but when it comes to negatives, if I'm at 0 and I'm working my way left on the number line, negative 20 would be first, and then negative 66 would be farther left. So already I think there's a problem with A. Before I even continue, actually I can just go look at A and look at the positives. It says that 2 is greater than 0.4. It can't be A. So by process of elimination and using really good mouse skill, I know that the answer really should be D, and I can just check that real quick. Negative 0.66, negative 0.2 or 20, comma positive 0.4, and then comma 2. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's D. Okay, we have one more to do. I think we might be skipping 7, but that's okay. We're just going to do number 8 here. 8 is a mini task. It says the table shows the heights and feet of several students in Mrs. Patel's class. And you notice that you've got one fraction mixed in with some decimals. So right off the bat, you should actually convert that to 5 and 1/4 is 5.25. And just so you don't think that that one's greater than 5.5 accidentally, why don't you annex a 0 and make that 5.50, 4.90, and 5 whole you can just leave. You could add some decimals if you wanted to. 5 whole is 5.00. It says write each height in the form of A over B. And I guess what I've done here, by doing all that math, I didn't read the questions yet. Really what I did is I did some work on question B. Not a bad idea to go answer B right now. The least height there, it says list the heights. The least height there is 4.9. The next one is 5 whole. The next one is 5 1/4, because that's 5.25, and the last one's 5.5. So that is, and if you can't see that, because I know that the video is not capturing the whole thing, I'll just go list them up here. Carmela is the first answer because it's least to greatest, and then Fang, and then Olivia, and then James. So those numbers, list them in order from, oh, and I did that backwards. I'm embarrassed, and I can't remake this video because I already did a whole bunch of it. So I got to redo it because it's greatest to least. But that's a good reminder. I guess I'll just use my mistake, as a nice review with you. Be careful. It says list the heights in order from greatest to least. The greatest height there is 5.5. If you can't see that, at least you can see it on the table. The next one is 5.25, which is 5 1/4. The next one's 5 whole, and the next one's 4.9. Okay, so question A says write each height in the form of A over B. Almost want to make my space here to redo this. This is the one we've reviewed this quite a few times, and the form of A over B means 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21, so this person is 21/4. I can actually just put that on the line, 21 over 4. It doesn't tell you to put it in any order. 5.5 means 5 and 5/10. 5 and 5/10 is 5 times 10 is 50, plus 5 is 55/10. 4.9 is kind of the same idea. It's 4 and 9/10. 4 times 10 is 40, plus 9 is 49/10. And the last one's 5. And don't forget the easy one. A whole number can be written as a fraction over 1. So the last one would be 5 over 1. Those are the correct answers for A. Okay, well that brings us to the end of the test review. I hope you found these videos helpful. Please rewatch them as many times as you need to in order to feel comfortable with this concept so that you can do your best on the test. Thank you.